All right, here we are. It's time for serverless office hours. And if you notice, it's just me today. No Julian, no guest. You're stuck with just Eric Johnson. So, what they're watching, today we're going to be talking about basically building locally, building service applications locally. And we've done some different things on like, hey, using a workflow studio or, some SAM, but we're going to kind of mix these together. And we did have one about doing, again, more about security. We're going to push that out a little bit. And so hopefully you're out there and we're glad to see you. And we're going to get started. As always, I'll be watching. Let me know where you're watching from and give a hey and a hello. And this is serverless office hours. So that means that, any questions you want to ask, throw it in there. And if I can answer it, I'll answer it. If I can't, I won't lie to you. I'll try to find someone who can answer it or I'll get back to you on it. So with that, we'll kind of jump in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick so you can see it. Let's get me back up on there and we'll get started. All right, there we go. Y'all can see me, my big old bald head sticking out of the blue dome. That's always fun. So today, like I said, and again, throw in the chat where you're watching from. We can do that. But today we're going to be looking at how do you build serverless applications. We're going to use some local tools. And I want to throw this caveat, it's not a caveat, but I want to throw this teaser up front. What I'm going to show you is going to be getting even better very soon. We have a team that's working. We're going to be mainly concentrating on AWS SAM today. And if you're not familiar with what AWS SAM is, it stands for the Serverless Application Model. And it is designed specifically to build and develop serverless applications. And so it helps you with the local development, it helps you with the deployment, it helps you with the management, all kinds of things like that. So you're going to see a lot of that. You're also going to see maybe some, we'll do a little vibe coding if we want to use that term, but we'll get started. I thought it'd be fun to kind of build a chat bot today, but we're going to do it in a way that isn't normally done. We're actually going to use step functions for it. So rather than me just talking, let's go ahead and get started. So here I am. I've got my VS Code. It's empty. I've got nothing in there. So we're just going to start from scratch. And I'm actually going to use a little Q chat, which if you're not familiar with this is the CLI tool that we can use to, it allows me to vibe and vibe code with that and have it kind of create some things for me. And we're not going to use a ton of this today, but just kind of let you see where it comes in. Super helpful. So let's get started. So I actually want to create for serverless, for SAM, we actually use a SAM template. And so we're going to create a SAM template, and in it we want a simple step functions, basically a state machine. So what I'm going to do now, this is where it gets painful. None of this is recorded. We're recording this, but this is all live. This is me typing, so bear with me. I just have these two fingers, and I'm still the worst fat finger on the planet. So we'll see how it goes. But let's go ahead and we're going to create a SAM template that has a single express, and there's two types of step functions, express and standard, but a single express step function in it. The step function, let's see here, the step function should only have a pass state. All right, so what that means is let's go ahead and get that started. So we actually wanted to create the template that defines a single express step function. And the pass state means, hey, just whatever comes in, comes out. And this is usually where we start. This is just a quick, and so it's asking me, hey, do you want to do this? I'm going to tell it to trust. So it's going to actually, these tools, it's going to be able to do anything it wants. And the pass state, it just whatever comes in, it'll put out, we can modify stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So we've got our template. And there's everything here. We've got our simple pass state. Now, one thing is, I actually want, it's asking me if I want, no, we're not going to do that right now. I actually want the ASL to be in a separate file. I didn't tell it that because you can put it right in SAM or not. So let's say move the state machine or step function definition to an external file. All right, so we'll have it go ahead, and because I'm using Q CLI, it can interact with my with my file system, and I can move it out. So now you see I've got a folder called State Machine, and here's my ASL. We're waiting for it to add. There it is. And the cool thing is, you can see the code here. We kind of jumped ahead. Now we have the designer showing here, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. All right. So the last thing I want to do with Q is I want to tell it. Let's close this for a moment. We've got our template. We've got our state machine. Notice it cleaned up the state machine. Now it's pointing to an external file. So that's a great way to kind of store and manage that. So we're going to go ahead and in here, I'm going to tell it create the SAM config file. SAM config is where we store a lot of our choices that we're going to make in SAM config. And I want it to be, let's see, SAM config file. All right. And I'm going to put with the stack name being SOH live. So this office hours live, spelling here. And as a default parameter, okay, and that parameter, I always spell that wrong. They'll be fine, but you know, all my chat clients know that I spell bad, so they deal with that anyway. But we're gonna tell it to use YAML instead of TOML. So let's see if it does that. All right, I'll create a SAM configuration file in YAML format with the default stack name of SOH live. All right, there we go. So there we go. So this is really handy. This is a global parameter. I mean, every time I interact with SAM, it's going to know that the stack name is SOH live. And that's really helpful when we're deploying, we're testing different things like that. For deploy parameters, stack name, it's got a bucket that it knows to use, the prefix. The region, I actually didn't tell it the region. We're going to change the region to US West 2. It's got the proper thing. So this is really cool when we're building. If you're not familiar with SAM, it can actually build Lambda functions for you, and we can build them in parallel, saying, hey, if I've got 3 functions, build them all at the same time. If you have a good machine, you can do that. Sometimes in the older machines, you don't want to do this. You want that to fall, so it'll do one then after the other. Nowadays, we can do that. And then the second is cached. Hey, don't build this if you don't have to. So, all right, so let's go ahead and save this. And we're gonna do. I think that's all I'm gonna do with the Q at the moment. But you see, I can quickly bootstrap a SAM application. I can do that with CDK as well. I can do it with Terraform. So quickly bootstrap. Hey, these are the things I want. I find that giving it kind of step. I mean, you could say create a whole application that does this, and it can do a lot of that. But I find that giving it steps makes it a little easier for me to follow and make sure I'm getting the right thing in there. Looking here, I see we have quite a few watchers. If you've got any questions, please throw it in. I want to be able to teach you, but I'll also learn from you too. If you've got some ideas, I'm glad to see that too. So I'm watching the comments for that, and I appreciate that. Okay, so we've got this in place. Now I want to go ahead and start building. So we're going to build mainly in the definition ASL, right? Okay, so we're using the state. Oh, now one thing here is it did actually do something. We're actually going to change this. We want to make sure. So I'm going to tell, so change, let's see if it knows. This is pretty new, so we'll see if it knows this. So change my state machine to use JSONata, okay? So what that means is we actually want to use, you can use JSON path or you can use JSONata. And so let's see what it does here. All right, so it's thinking about what that needs to look at. So it knows where it is. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't, yep, nope, that's still working on it. Let's see what we got here. And if it doesn't, that's okay, I can do it. All right, so here it's saying I'm gonna update that. It's outdated. So it does support it, so that's okay. So what we're gonna do, I'll show you a little trick here. If I delete this, I'm gonna close this out. We'll save this. Let's see if we can get JSONata going. There we go, query language JSONata. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to my design. So now it's using JSONata because what happened is our local tool that we use that's in the toolbox. It actually knows, hey, we use JSONata or JSON path. I want JSONata. Okay, so now we've got this. We're going to kind of start building and seeing, see what we're going to do. Now, the way I'm thinking about doing this is we're not going to do a streaming one at the moment, although I can, but I don't want to take the time to do the WebSockets and stuff like that. But I will talk about that a little bit. We're just going to do a send and response, so request and response, where we get the information back. We're going to talk to Bedrock. We're going to basically build this chat channel, do memory, things like that. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just add something here. So we want to take, and if I go over here, bring out my states, and this is, I've got it blown way up so y'all can see it. So it's not usually this big and cumbersome. We'll actually move that out of the way and see if that helps a little bit. Bring my states back up. So the thing I want right now is I'm going to use the Converse API. Okay, so the Converse API, if you're not familiar with Bedrock, this says, hey, you can use the same API to work with multiple endpoints. Maybe I'll use one of the Amazon or the AWS ones. Or I may use Anthropic, or so the different models that I can use, and I can show you those in a minute. We can use all the different ones. Maybe it's Nova from Amazon, maybe it's Claude from Bedrock, maybe it's Meta. So the Converse API allows you to use the same syntax to still talk to multiple endpoints. So it's a great place to start, right? And so what we're going to do is I'm going to grab, we'll actually talk to, let me just grab, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not going to type all this out. I'm going to cheat just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go back to my thing here. And in the Converse API, in the arguments and such, and you can scroll up here. So we're going to actually add a model, and some of this is more than, I'm kind of jumping ahead on this. So we'll just say, for the moment, hello, how are you? Okay. So what I've done here is I'm saying I'm going to use so this is the actual endpoint, and then US dot means that I can actually do, it's actually cross count, and so it can hit different ones, so it's load balance, and so we can do that by adding that US there, and you can do that with the Bedrock as well. So I'm going to tell them on a role of user, and the content I'm going to send is just a simple text, hello, how are you? Okay, so I'm going to save that. That's the end of it for the moment. Now, we need to go ahead and deploy what we have. And the reason for that is I need permissions. I need to actually create a role. Now, I could do local things like that, but I want to create a role where that it's going to be used. So let's actually jump back out of here and go back to our template here. And in the template, we're actually going to say, I'm going to add a new statement, and I can do this right in the state machine. So you have policies that you can add. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead. And by adding it on the template, it automatically knows that it's the state machine that's going to, or it's state machine it's going to be assumed. So I don't have to write a separate role. Some of that is already is in effect, right? So let's go ahead and add a new one. So it's just a new version. And on this one, we only really need one thing, but we'll let Q help us out here. So I'm going to go, so the action is going to be Bedrock. And then I want actually converse, that should be good. All righty. So all I need to do is I'm going to say Bedrock converse, and then I'm going to just put a star in here because I'm just hitting the Bedrock endpoint. So now what I've done is I've said, okay, so I have all the logging permissions and everything I need for my state machine. Now I have the statement that gives you Bedrock converse. I could have obviously put that up there and did a star, but I like to break down and make different, basically keep them separated. All right, drinking my Dr. Pepper here. All right, we have quite a few people watching. No questions, no saying hello. So I'm making sure I'm not missing comments here. So keeping an eye on that. All right, so we've got that. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, I'm going to do a deploy. So I'm going to do a SAM deploy. I've already created my config file, so it knows the stack name and everything I'm going to do. So if I hit SAM deploy, it'll actually deploy the app. Okay. So sometimes when calling you put on, okay, access denied. Give me a second here. So the state machine referenced by definition URI. Okay. So I think maybe we may have gotten some wrong. information. So we're going to say, let me look at this real quick. Definition URI is state machine. Here, let's just retype it, see if I can. So we're going to go to state machine.asl. We'll change this to definition ASL. I feel like that's something I did wrong here. So we got the type, we got the definition URI, and we've got the policies. Let's try that again. So CM deploy. All right. I feel like I just put the same thing. We're gonna have the same thing again. Yeah. All righty. Okay. Well, let's see what I did wrong here. Type serverless state machine property definition. Maybe so. Sometimes you got to look it up. So I'm gonna go over here. And actually, let's do this. I'll show you a little cheater here. And then again, this is how we're doing it. So I'm going to delete the state machine. So I obviously did something wrong. And I'm going to say, no, actually I'm not. So give me a second here. I'm just going to see what I did wrong. And this is always fun to watch someone troubleshoot, but that's okay. So I wonder if it's just, and hey, and if you've got an idea, here we go. Hello, I see the demo. Ghost is with us. That's right. Yes, there we go. Always definition URI. So what I'm doing is see if maybe we use the wrong application here. So I'm going to take a look, and of course I've got some documents up there, so bear with me here. Okay. Just policies. All right, I'm gonna do. So here's what we're gonna do: is we're gonna take we're gonna copy one I've got here. We're just gonna post it in. I think I missed a few things when I was setting it up in the template here. So we're gonna actually say, bear with me a moment. Okay, so I want to grab all my logging and everything, and here we go. Okay. So we'll just cheat. This is the best thing to do is when you're doing this. So we're actually we'll just get rid of all this and let's drop it in like this. And so let me walk you through what the code is real quick here, because there's more here I wanted anyway. So we got our logging turned on. We want all logging to happen. We want our policies. So there's my X-ray policy, my DynamoDB read, which we'll actually use in a little bit. DynamoDB write. Notice I've broken those out. It can do CRUD, but I don't need everything. Just read and write. Here's the logging statement, and finally here's the statement from earlier: Bedrock invoke model with response stream if we want to do that later, and converse. This is really the only one we need at the moment. I've turned on tracing. My type is express. I'm going to use definition substitution in a little while for this. We'll comment this out for a moment, and we'll explain that in a few minutes. And then for the event, we're going to turn that off for a moment as well. Those are things we'll use in a little bit. And then our definition URI is still definition.asl .json. So I need to change this. ASL.json. Okay, let's see if that gets me anywhere. Okay. That's really interesting. Playground SOS definition. Oh, that's because I didn't go into the folder. So yeah, you do got to do that. So you can this right here. This is why I use GUI tools and things to do to build that. So that's super helpful. Okay, so we're gonna start over. I'm gonna figure out what I did wrong. So we're gonna do it this way, and this is good. You'll get to see this here. Let me delete this. Okay. All righty. So somewhere I made a mistake in there. So here's a great way to do it. So I'm going to start the template file again. And this is how I also start. I was trying to be fancy. So template.yaml. YAML. All righty. In my experience, VS Code doesn't save things automatically. So yeah, you just have to save also countless bugs. Yeah, there's some good information coming back on that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually open another tool. Okay, and this is our infrastructure composer. This is super helpful. This is going to do all the stuff the way we want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over. I really should have started here. So I'm going to grab a step function state machine. Okay, and in the details, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say I want you to store an external file, and that's fine. ASL.yaml. Okay. Anything else? So what we're going to call this is we'll call this the process state machine. State machine. I'm going to turn it into Express. Okay, so now I've got everything right here. Here's the state machine definition. It's going to be external definition substitution. Right now, it'll actually create this with the Lambda. We'll clear that out in just a few minutes. So we'll leave that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay, now I'm going to close this out. I want to go back to my state machine ASL here. And you can see that we've done, that it's here. Now, the one thing here is it is still in JSON path because that's the standard for it. So we'll go ahead and see if we can't convert this. And we will convert it to JSONata. And then the rest of it will be JSONata as well. And now we're in JSONata. Yay. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Okay. And let's bring in our converse model again. And I'll just pull the stuff over. So let me close this out. And we're going to bring out here and converse, pull it in here. Yeah, okay, so let me grab the state machine for that, or the code for that. And I'll walk through that so you can see it. Okay, so here, like I said, we've got it all nice and big. So we're going to go to our configuration, our input and output. Go back here. Okay, so now this is what that looks like. Again, we're going to take this just back to a simple how are you. All right. And then we're user and we're using Nova. Okay. That should get us there. Okay. We go back to our template here. I do need to make sure that I have again, we're going to create the secondary policy that allows us to talk to Bedrock. Okay, so I'm just going to paste that and we'll say Bedrock spelling counts. Bedrock converse. That's enough for now. All right, there we go. Okay, yeah, all right. Now, okay, there we go. Converse text. Okay, so this should deploy. If this doesn't, we'll just stop the show and I'll just quit my job and we'll see how that goes. Is more okay. Hi, do you use Terraform deployment? No, I don't use Terraform. I actually use SAM for deployment, and I'll show you that. And you can use SAM in the pipelines. So S3 bucket definer. Okay. Thank you, Grant. I appreciate that. He says Gaulish Donuts was an S3 bucket definer. Same config that your user didn't rights to. That's possible. Yeah. So we can actually, if we want to do that, if you're like, what's wrong with my SAM config file? Notice I don't have one right now. And that's a good call out. So in here, I'm going to actually go back down, if you can see it behind my face here. And I'm going to say, now that I've got my template and my state machine in place, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say, make sure everything's saved, SAM deploy -G. And that G actually is a guide and says, hey, I'll create that SAM config file for you. So we'll call this SOH live for that. US West 2 is my default region. That's where I want to do. No, I don't want to confirm the changes. This is a development environment. I can push it. I'm okay with that. Allow SAM to create the role I need for deployment. Okay. Disable rollback. No, I'm not disabling that. Save arguments to configuration file. Yes, this is where we're going to. Now, notice the default is TOML. I prefer YAML. So I do SAM config. Those are the two that are supported, YAML and TOML. So I'm going to go YAML like so. And it's the default environment. And look at that. Okay, we've got a deploy going. So that makes me happy. So what it does, it creates the change set, and then it's going to go out and it's going to actually deploy the state machine itself and any roles and any log groups that are needed. And once that's deployed, we can take action on it. So log groups created. This is fairly quick. Under the hood, just so you know, and I'll move this over so you can see it better. Under the hood, this is using CloudFormation. So SAM actually outputs the CloudFormation. Aha, what do we got here? So let's see. Resource handler return model validation failed. Okay. Minimum size one found. Okay. So definition substitution. So we need to actually look at that and see what I've done wrong. Okay. Yeah. So so what I did is I told it, hey, you got a definition substitution, because remember I left it in there and I left it blank, and I forgot to remove this. What definition substitution does is it allows you to actually in the ASL code to refer to like a Lambda function or some other resource, and then on deploy, it'll actually replace that token with the actual name of the resource. Now, if you put one and it doesn't exist, then CloudFormation is going to go, oh, hold on a minute, that doesn't exist, and so we're going to fix that. That's not a hard thing to fix. This is where CloudFormation kind of goes, okay, I need to figure out what's going on, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete that one, and we'll start the deploy again. And you can't see I'm doing it in the console, because you can do a SAM delete, but I need to wait for it to do its thing. So I'm gonna help it along because we're doing a live show here. All right. Okay. So user initiated, you can see that I just asked it to do the deploy or delete. This shouldn't take too long. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these for the moment. Actually, I'll leave that in there because I'll use it later, but I'll comment it out. And then once that happens, we can get started. Now, here's a fun thing. If you're like, oh, if you're doing something live and you need to make it work and it's kind of hanging there, so here's what we'll do is we're going to go into our SAM config file. We're going to change this. It's actually almost done here, so it may not be worth it. But we can change the name, and we can say, hey, well, let's call this SAM Live 2, right? Like that. So I'm going to save that. So now I'm not going to stomp on the other one. We'll let it delete. And while it's working, we can actually open another terminal. And we can say, and let me get my credentials here, which they look to be already up, but we'll make sure. Okay. So now I can say, and we'll just delete the first one so it can just go about its thing. And we'll do SAM deploy, make sure that's saved. We've already got the config file, so we're good there. So let's go ahead and start the deploy again. All right. And the other one is deleted. So it is actually gone. I can see it's actually creating the new one. And I apologize for that. If you're going to do anything stupid, you won't do it until it's on live TV. And there used to be a time where this terrified me, but I'm doing better now. All right. I'm guessing this is a plugin for VS Code. What are its capabilities? Yeah. So this that you're seeing down here is not. This is I've actually. Oh, look, it's already deployed. So I've actually. This is SAM installed. So I'm using the terminal for that. However, you do, yes, I hear that. Calms, oh, massive imposter syndrome. So, by the way, Grant, who I happen to know well, he has the same bald head I do. How cool is that I'm sticking out of the ball like that? Isn't that fun? Okay, so yes, but there you can also get access to it through the AWS toolkit like this. And so I have access to CDK. Here's all my applications that I've done. So yeah, the toolkit installs a lot of it, and it uses SAM under the hood. I just like to use SAM directly. So now that we have everything right, it now works, how we're supposed to. So let's go back to the state machine. And I want to show you something really cool. If you haven't, so everything you're seeing, this is all local, right? I can actually edit this and change it, but I needed my role out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, we're going to do a test state. And I'm going to choose a role, and we'll go SOH live, and it should tell me, there it is. So there's the role. So now, when my test state runs this, let's pull this down so we can see more. It's going to actually, there you go. Yeah. it's going to actually assume this role to run it. So we know the permissions are. And so if you remember in this definition, all we're doing is we're going to talk to the model, the Nova model, and we're going to say, how are you? All right. And so from here, I don't have any variables or anything like that. I can actually just say start test. Okay. So we got an error, Bedrock runtime access denied. So apparently I put the wrong one here. So user on assume role, okay, is not authorized to perform Bedrock invoke model. Okay, so that was my bad. That's an easy fix. So what we're going to do, if you remember, Amazon Q tried to tell me. So we're in there. So that's all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to say, okay, let's add this invoke model. And those two. So what I didn't realize is Converse by itself isn't enough. It has to be also the invoke model. So Nova model is some sort of neural network behind Bedrock name. No. So Nova is Amazon's own models. So let me explain that. Let me deploy this real quick, and this will be a quick deploy. And I don't want to have to deploy every time just to get I just need to get the right role out there. So the Nova is Amazon's own model, and they're roughly 70% faster, and they're quite a bit cheaper as well. Now, you may say, okay, look, I can use Nova for most everything, but sometimes I need the really massive reasoning of Claude 3.7. So there are ways to do like prompt routing. This is, hey, if it's really complex, go to Bedrock or go to Claude. If it's something that I can do, good summarizing, things like that, then Nova works. And there's even a Nova Lite right now. I'm using the Nova. Which one am I using? I'm using the Pro. So I can do the Lite. So it's just a different model, but they're all hosted by Bedrock. So hopefully, Hawks of Code, that answers your question. All right, let's try this again. So let's test state. We've got the role there. Let's make sure here. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and start the test. And there you go. So see, that was doing Nova is just really fast. So okay, oh, good call. Yes. All right. So you see the output. I've got the message. I've got the content, and here you go. I don't have a personal experience with motion, so I don't have to. Okay. So then that was my answer. Okay. All right. So we've created, for all intents and purposes, just a real quick chatbot. Now, real quick, we're going to go ahead and we can do a couple things. Let's go ahead and throw an API in front of it just for the fun of it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my template. And let's close these out so I don't do something silly. Okay, and I'm going to go back in here. And I'm going to say, and here being the infrastructure composer. And so let's go ahead and get this over here. So this is my state machine that's doing everything. Now, the one thing I do want is I want API gateway. And in the API gateway, the details, we can call it anything we want. But for the moment, the only, we'll call it chat API, like so. And I'm not going to do an authorizer at the moment. Normally I would want, and I want to post because I'm going to be posting data to it, and I'll just do it on the path. So let's save that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, you talk to this state machine. All right. By doing that, if I go back to my YAML template, what I've done is I've done chat API. Here's the API. It's created everything I need, and it's created, and yes, I'm going to say the word of VTL. Well, that answer. Yeah, that's good. VTL to actually invoke the starter. And what we want is we want a sync execution. So step functions could be started asynchronously or sync. Start execution is asynchronous. Start sync execution is synchronous. Okay. And in order to do that, I also need to change my role real quick. Where did my role go here? Hang on a second. State machine. Here's the chat API. There it is. Chat. Here we go. Okay. So, and here's the policies, and we're going to start sync execution. Okay. So, what I've done basically is I've created a quick API that'll it'll be secure, that is front of this that fronts this chatbot, or the chatbot that we just built. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to make a couple of changes in our state machine. Man, they pay me to talk here, and all I can do is stuff like that. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back over to our state machine. I'm going to open that up, and when we send data, it's actually going to come in configuration through. We'll use a message, right? So what we're going to say is our text should now be a message, and we're going to use JSONata to grab that. So we're going to say using JSONata. JSONata, if you're not familiar with that, is a query language. It's very powerful, and we know that everything is on the states dot. And something makes me nervous that this isn't. All right, so states dot input dot message. That's what we're going to pass in, or we should pass in. We might have to test that, so I'm doing that. So we're going to save that for a moment, and we're going to go ahead and deploy this. So we've saved file, we've got the template, we've got the API gateway. So let's go ahead and deploy that. And then we shouldn't have to deploy as much afterwards. So, because we can test right in the test state without having to deploy them all. All right. So let's see. Your bald head has never looked better. I do appreciate that. I shaved it this morning, which is always risky. He's not bald. His brains have outgrown his hair. Yeah. Nova bald. So we answered that. Let's hope our Nova doesn't. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay. All right. So we're deploying this out there. And once that goes out, then we can start testing that. Now, we're going to actually, I don't know if you've seen this plugin, but there's this plugin called, so we're going to call this test.http. And this is an API plugin. This is pretty slick. And I'm going to actually copy and paste some stuff in because it's easier that way. Okay. So now, with this, I can actually set variables, and once we get our domain name back, which actually will let me output that real quick here. So this is always a joy. You forget to do your outputs. Now we're going to say, so outputs means, hey, tell me so Q on the ball here. Q's figured out. So we need that chat endpoint. So I actually don't need to export it because we'll just use it internally. So we're going to save this. And then while we're deploying, I'll explain my endpoint. So this test API, you can just write in functions, and then you can tokenize it. So basically, when I get my domain back from Sam, it's going to actually tell me the domain name. I can fill in this data, right? So now I have it. So really, all I need is this part right here. Okay. So this is my new domain. So, okay, and prod. I don't have a token yet, so we'll just leave that for the moment. So now I can actually say, what is the capital of New York? Now this, let's see if I got it right. We'll find out. So I'm going to hit. Let's update. Oh, hey, it's important that you save it, Eric. Okay. All right, let's try this again. So I've got my All right. So it's either the request service, so I'm getting an error here. So we'll figure that out. So let's just, for giggles and grins, so we're not messing around. I just installed this morning, so I'm kind of learning this one. So let's just go like this. Okay. All righty. So we're going to go post, and we're going to save that. Let's see if that works. It does work. Okay, so there's my response. Okay, I got a 200. Look at there. Hey, we did it right. Okay, so I got some information back. Okay, expression with that. Oh, now it looks like I didn't actually get it in properly, but we'll get it in properly. That's fine. Okay, so now we can start messing with the state machine and working through that. But as you can see, obviously I need to wire the state machine up properly. I now have a chat. Okay, so it's very simple, very easy, but yeah. All right, so how did you end up doing a live presentation? Is it a volunteer role, or is there some sort of a lecture? So what you're saying is, what are you doing? Why did you choose to do this? To be honest, I like doing these. I like debugging and troubleshooting in front of people. It's part of my role here at AWS. So I am what's called a principal developer advocate. I do work for AWS, and so I work with serverless all the time. It may not be showing right now, but I do with serverless all the time, and I actually go out and train and teach. And so that's why I'm doing a live presentation. I know that smart people would have pre-recorded this, but I don't mind making mistakes in front of people. So to be honest, Grant keeps me honest. So there you go. Hopefully that answered your question. All right, so let's go back to our state machine and let's start playing around and make sure it works. So the first thing we want to do, and we have this cool tool, so I'm going to actually get rid of Q for the moment here. And this is kind of cool. I'm going to say, let me remember the name of my stack, SOH2. Okay. So I'm going to do a tool called SAM logs, and I'm going to say stack name is SOH live 2. Now, what this is going to do is grab all the logs, okay? And actually, I can tell it to tail. So I'm just going to let it sit here. And because I turned on the logs, now you can see everything going on. So I can actually, this is really hard because these are so small. Let's get rid of some of this so we can make it a little bigger. But I can actually go through and see the logging. So here's the state machine. It tells you what's going on. Here's the output. So this is what it kicked out. So what we want to find is I'm looking for the input. So let's go back. Here we go. Input details. So this is the input that it got. Okay. So I can take this and I can say, all right, so it's just literally just a message and what is the capital of New York? So I could come back here. Well, yeah, that's getting carried away. We're using Guru fast and loose, but I appreciate that. All right, so let's come back here. So we're going to go in, we're going to get rid of this so we have the full window, and we're going to go back into our test state. And we're going to work here for a little bit, okay? Oh, which test state did I go? Yeah, I'm on commerce. Okay, testing, right? So I can look at the state definition. Okay, so what I want to do is I know that my input is going to look something like this, okay? So I'm going to say, message is, and then we'll take it back to our normal. We'll say who is Grant Leamy. Okay, we'll see if it knows. Okay, so that's our message, right? That's the input that it's getting from that stringified, but we're going to parse it and it's sticking out there. So now in my state definition, what I really want to do is I want to grab the states.input.message. So I'm telling it. And we're going to do that again because I didn't like that I didn't get highlights earlier. So we're going to say, there we go. JSON, now we got it. So we're going to go state. There we go. I think something was wrong with my VS Code's been acting weird. So, and we're going to go to look at the endpoint, and we know we want message or the input. Okay. So let's go ahead. We don't need to save it or anything. We can literally just start the test. Okay. And we'll hit that. All right. So here's our response. Okay. Let's see if it knows. Okay. In Home Assistant. Okay. All right. However, the syntax. Okay. So it doesn't like what I'm doing. Okay. State of the input. Home Assistant. Okay. Well, that's doing something. Okay. Input.message. Okay. So it doesn't like for some reason what I'm doing. And so I'm going to look real quick and see here and make sure I'm getting message. Let me save this. Okay. So we did get a response. Okay. All right. Find out what's going on. So we got message. So that's the root. All right. So am I spelling something wrong? Which is always okay. And put massage instead of message. You know how that goes. All right. So we're going to go over here. No, I've got it right. States.input. Oh, hang on. Nope, that's right. Okay. State definition. Okay, role, content, user, text. Okay. Input, let's try that again. Input and dot. Paste that. Save that. Okay, we're going to apply the changes and close. Actually, let's open that up. All right, so there's the definition. Test state. Actually, I want to look at something real quick here. All right, so it's saying it doesn't think it's model message role content type frame. Okay. Now I've got it in JSON. That's interesting. Okay. So because it's input output, no, it's not. Configuration, state name, converse, API prayer. Yeah, that's what I did wrong. I think that's what I did wrong. So let's copy all this. Okay. And we're going to go back here So I think it was when I actually changed it earlier, and that's why it's causing me problems here. So let's look at now the configuration. So if we go down here, so the arguments and output, yeah, that was it. Okay, so there we go. That should get, oh boy, Eric Blue. So you got to make sure you're in JSONata. When I dumped it and brought it back in, it switched it back. So that was on me. Probably just a misalignment of tools. So let's go ahead and I'm going to save this for the moment. Go to test state and let's see if we can make this work here. Arguments, state definition, and actually I don't want everything. I just want the state itself, model ID down to, all right, down to here, I believe is what I want. Yes. Nope. I want to here. Oh, so I hate, model ID. I want messages. And there we go. So I want these two. All right, so let's go back to that. I'm going to actually close this out. I'm probably causing more confusion. Oh, yeah, that's the whole thing. So the arguments are, yeah, okay, that's set up. So we can test state. Let's just try it, see if it works. Okay, so who's Grant Lammy? See if it knows who he is now. Boy, that was a waste of time. As of my last update, there isn't one in public. Oh, I'm sorry, Grant. That's a little disappointing, isn't it? Okay. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right. So we got that working. Whew. That took way longer. I apologize. That took longer than it should, and I know we're running out of time. But let's do some things really quick and kind of explain what's going on. All right. So we've got this going, and now we want to do some more work. So we can interact with the chatbot. Okay. So let's do some things. Okay. So first of all, let's get our output in a way that we want it. And I have a whole thing that I'll dump in, and we can share that so you can see it working. But so if I go back to, let's close the state thing here. So one of the things we want to be able to do is we want to be able to store data, right? So when you do a Bedrock, now you can have Bedrock handle your memory and everything, but what if you want to do it yourself, right? So one of the things you can do is you can say, okay, and I actually think I'm going to go ahead and grab my other template. Because we're running out of time, I'm going to take my other template and drop it in, and then and then I'll kind of explain it. I think that might be a better way to do it. So let me grab this and come back here, and let's go to here. All right. Okay. So this gives us a better idea of where I'm headed, and I apologize that we kind of had to change that out, and we'll get this working so you can see it. But basically, what we've got here is I added a choice state, and what I've said is, hey, the choice said if a state.input.id exists, then we know we've been talking to them already, and we're going to search the database for that information. Okay. Now, if it doesn't, then I need to create a UUID. So I'm going to go into past date and create I'm going to create that UUID. Then both of them will then go to the Converse API, and it'll actually pull that data. And I want to show you the actual code in here. So it'll actually send that information, and it'll send the history if it exists. And this is a JSONata script. You got to be proud of me for this one, where I'm saying, okay, because remember, it's coming from either one of these. This one will not send the history. This one will send the history. So what I'm saying is, if history exists, so if exists states.input.history, then I want you to add in the history, and I'm adding a tag so that the model knows that there's a tag. And what I've done is I've converted up here, and I'll show you. I've converted the history here. I've converted it to just string. Okay, and it's literally question equals this, answer equals this, and here's the next one. And then the end of the history tag, and then add the next message. So what we're getting, and in the DynamoDB, I can say, just give me the last 10, or give me a summary of the last 10. I can do that to start saving tokens, right? Okay. So then it makes the request, and it returns it, and we're actually going to format our output. We'll actually do it here. So in DynamoDB, we want to take the newest answer and write it to our DynamoDB. Okay, so we say, okay, here was the latest question and here was the answer. And I'm using variables, and I set them up here, right here. I'm using variables to pass that out. Here was the original message, here was the ID, and down here I'm going to take the answer you gave me from Converse IP, and I'm going to write that, and I'll show it here. I'm going to write that all to the database as table name, item, so on and so forth, right? So it does all that. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to actually update my template with all this information so we can quickly we'll deploy that. So probably should have done that first, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my other template and we're just going to seed it here. Okay. All righty. Oh, look at that. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. All right. Template. Okay. Okay. And we'll come back to this. So in our template, we're actually going to create it all brand new. So this is all going to go out, create some new stuff, definition, but it's all in there, including, remember I said we can do the definition substitutions. I want to show you that real quick, where I can refer to in my template. If you look at the code under table name, I'm saying token DynamoDB table. Let's go ahead and start this deploying, and I can explain the rest of this in a moment here. So we're going to SAM deploy. Let's hope that doesn't blow up on me with the change and everything. So, all right, let's check our change set real quick. I'm actually going to kill this logging because it's going to go to the old log. Okay, so while that's deploying, let me kind of explain the definition substitutions. So what I can do is I can say, okay, every time you see $ brackets or curly brackets used, I actually want you to fill in the process table, and it actually does this at deployment. So this is a really handy way. Oh man, I didn't save the template. That's okay. We'll do a quick update of that in a minute. It's a really handy way to substitute data as needed and tokenize this, because if I pass it to you, especially when you use things like S3 buckets, and I know Grant was referring to that. So let's run one more deploy because I didn't save that, and it'll update it real quick. If I do it if I want to do it like an S3, S3s are globally unique. So first of all, the rule of thumb is for naming things, let CloudFormation name them. So I don't do a name, but I can reference that and input it into the ASL if I need to. So it's a really handy way of doing that. SAM does that. If you do this in CDK, you can also kind of write an update. You can kind of manually write that. There's a couple of projects out there that do it as well, but just a way to do it. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see if this even works. We're going to copy this. We'll go to our test here, and we're going to paste this. This is our new endpoint. All right, so we're going to say, what is the capital of, and let's actually start this again so we can see it. Okay, there should be no logs at the moment because we cleared that out, which there are not. So let's minimize this so you can see. Let's bring this over so you can see. All right, making room. Okay, so now we're going to go, what is the capital of New York? So let's go ahead and send that. All right, don't see any errors. That's a good sign. Now remember, because we're talking the model, it takes a minute and we're getting the whole thing back, right? So it shows so this is what I asked, and this is what I requested, or this is the answer. The capital of the state of New York is Albany, okay? So we've got all this information. Well, that's great, but we also got an ID back, right? So this ID right here was generated, and now we have data in the database. So what I'm going to do is we're going to send a follow-up, and we found that my tokens weren't working, so I'm just going to hard code this stuff. So in my next one, so this is what you would do with the client, is you would say, okay, I'm going to do, now that I do that, I can ask it something and it should understand what I'm asking. So I'm going to say, okay, what is the average weather here? Well, where's here? It's not going to know unless the history works. So let's go ahead and send that. Let's see. Let's wait for it to update. It's kind of hard to see it update, but we did get a response. You can can see it doing that here. Oh, it says, oh, Albany, New York experiences a humid continental climate, blah, 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 so on and so forth. You kind of get that idea. Okay, so what we've done here is, let's go back to the state machine so you can see it, is we're writing this where first thing we do is check for an ID. If no ID, create one. If there is an ID, then get the history. Then both of these then forward to the converse. So now we've got an ID and a message to work with coming from both of them. The converse uses the message and history if it comes from DynamoDB to hit there. And then finally, it saves the data to DynamoDB and then gives the answer back. Now, as you saw, that was a lot of, we'll send this again. You saw all the information you got back. That's a lot of information. So your client would need to grab the actual data that's coming in and kind of format that and pull it. Now, you're saying, Eric, that takes a long time, and people don't want to sit there, and you're right. And I have an example of this, and maybe I'll do it on another show. But you can actually, instead of doing REST API on WebSockets, you can actually, or I'm sorry, on API Gateway, you can do WebSockets. And the WebSockets endpoint, what you would do is, instead of Step Functions doesn't have a way to stream data back, but what you would do is in Step Functions, and we'll just show it here real quick, is rather than doing this Converse API, we would instead, let's close this out, we would add a Lambda function, and you could still build everything out here, but we would add a Lambda function that calls the streamable endpoint, the Converse streamable endpoint, and then as those chunks come back, you send it back to the WebSockets. And now you have a chatbot that flows really fast. And I actually, I'll post on Twitter an example of that. But a while back, I actually showed that. Okay, so I made a lot of mistakes in front of you, and I knew I would. But hopefully you walked away with knowing how powerful, Step Functions is, JSONata, building locally and being able to use this. I mean, my favorite tool in the world is getting at this test state, because I can change things and try them without deploying. So I just, I go to each different state and I go, hey, what if I want to change the output of my DynamoDB? Well, I can go to my test state and I can look at my output. So I'm actually doing outs into variables. And so I can change how that's working. And here's my output here. There's my input, sorry. Here's my output that I'm sending to you. I can maybe add something else and try it all locally. So it's a great way to test that. I have about 3 minutes to answer any questions if you want to throw them in there. If not, I really hope you enjoyed this. This was an off the cuff since we had a show canceled. So this was fun for me. I like doing these. And with that, we're going to wrap up here in about a minute. But if there's any quick questions I can answer, I'll do it. I'm looking back through here. Yeah, sorry, Grant. Nobody didn't know you, and I'm pretty sure that or Claude wouldn't either. But I'm getting there. I'm working on it. So I'm going to write an MCP tool. If you're not familiar with that, MCP is the new thing, and that's kind of where I'm interested in going. Is could we build an MCP tool in Step Functions? Not yet, but we're super close. And actually, with the streamable. So I'm absolutely changing topic here. With the streamable protocol or the transport, I think we're very close, and you may see something from me on that later. All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming in. Thank you so much for staying and watching this. Again, I hope you learned something. If you didn't, you let me know. Hey, Eric, you shouldn't be doing these anymore. That's all right. I'm pretty thick-skinned. So, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back. I want to do a call out to Jeffrey and Paco. They're my producers. They, for as much as we can, they try to make me look good. So thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate that. And we'll see you later.